Not sure what's going on with this thing. It's acting up. So, for whatever reason, the Subi is starting to act up. Might just be bad gas. This car has been totally fine, no problems till now. Well, I give you guys full permission to make all the Subaru jokes in the world you want now, because we gotta pull the motor on the STi. Now, if you remember in the last video, when we went out to San Clemente, I mentioned that I was having issues with my dam dropping. All of a sudden, it was weird. I didn't know how to fix it, and I tried the usual dam diagnostic, which was change the gas, check the spark plug, check the NOx sensor. If that doesn't work, check compression. And when I got home from California, I went ahead and I bought a compression tester. And lo and behold, typical number 4 decides to be low compression. So, why this happened, I don't know why. This is a 2021, barely 30,000 miles on it. And yeah, I am the second owner, but from what it looked like, the previous owner did take care of it. These things just happen sometimes with cars. This is the world of modifying Subarus, I guess, maybe, I don't know. So, nothing much to it, but we gotta start to pull the motor. So I went ahead and I picked up cherry picker, an engine stand, and I also have a bunch of Company 23 tools on the way so that we can go through and get this thing torn apart. It really is stock, minus the intake and the AOS. I've done all the maintenance required, oil change every 3,000 with the right oil, good oil, and you know what? This is just the sign to build it better and stronger, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. Now, fingers crossed, I'm pretty sure it's just it's something in the valve train, because when I did my compression test, put a little bit of oil inside cylinder 4 and the compression did not change, which means that it's most likely not ringland failure. But I won't know until I strip it down. So I'm thinking it's either a cracked valve spring or a burnt valve. I don't hear too many burnt valves in these cars, especially with such low miles. So I'm thinking it's probably either a cracked valve spring or something in the valve train. Once again, I won't know until I get this thing stripped down fully. Okay, so we've gotten the motor stripped down just a little bit. We got the intercooler out, the radiator, the air intake, and the battery, of course. Still probably gonna get the AOS out. We gotta do the accessories, so power steering, alternator, and AC. AC is just gonna pull over to the side here, and then power steering is gonna pull over to the side there. I don't wanna disconnect either of them because I don't want to leak power steering fluid or have to recharge the AC. While I was pulling out the intercooler, I did notice that there's a little bit of blow by in there. It doesn't seem like there's anything making it past the intercooler into the throttle body. I'm probably gonna check the turbo when I pull it out. Maybe the turbo's bummed, I don't know. But other than that, it looks to be pretty normal, other than the, of course, compression. I'm not seeing super glittery oil. I just drained the oil, so I'm letting it drain out, but it doesn't look super glittery or glittery at all. And then the coolant doesn't look like oil and coolant are mixing, so I don't think it's a head gasket. I won't totally know until, once again, I strip it down. I'm gonna replace the coolant anyways and replace the oil, even though I just put in this oil probably, I don't know, maybe 200 miles ago. Kind of a waste of oil, but I don't want to risk anything. I don't want to run oil that's been in the motor already again, even though I probably could. So I got power steering out of the way. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do the intake manifold next because I cannot get to the bolts, at least with the current tools that I have, under the AC compressor, which is not a huge deal. I've seen a lot of people do it that way too, so it doesn't really matter. I kind of compartmentalize this in my mind and remove as little as possible off the engine while it's in the bay. To remove the intake manifold, we have all of the plugs that go to our TGVs. There's a bunch of sensors, are the few sensors up here and some sensors over there. Then we have on either side, we have 4 bolts that go to the TGVs. I'm gonna pull the TGVs off with the manifold and not separate them. And then we have to pull our AOS out and disconnect our fuel lines. The manifold was the thing that I struggled with most on the 2005 STi, if you guys remember that. So this is probably gonna be another the same situation again. Gotta take our time with it. Okay, so arguably one of the hardest parts is done. I decided it's just gonna be easier to do it this way. There's so much going on, especially on a bone stock 2021. The V8 chassis have a lot more sensors compared to the GDs, which is what I'm used to. Now I'm going to start on getting our PCV system, the secondary air pump, and the coolant crossover. Coolant crossover, and then this is our PCV setup, but it also has crossover, or part of the coolant crossover within it. Okay, I'm trying my best to take everything apart in as big of chunks as possible. I just think it's gonna make reassembly so much easier, because right now, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this thing back together. I'd like to have a word with whoever designed these clamps for the breather hoses, because I also want to take a second to kind of go over everything, because I know for a lot of people who have never done this before, this is probably very confusing. So it's honestly confusing for me too, but in reality it's pretty simple. This is your intake manifold. Basically chops up to your TGVs, your fuel rails, and your fuel lines, all of which are kind of underneath the manifold. We might be changing those out soon, and then I can kind of explain where that goes. You also have your evap and your boost control solenoid. Your boost control solenoid is just a couple of vacuum lines, one that goes to manifold, and then this one goes to wastegate and your turbo. You have your turbo inlet, of course. This is your coolant crossover and your kind of PCV system, along with a couple of coolant lines. This is your coolant crossover, this big aluminum piece right here, that goes to the heater core. Then you have another crossover. This actually goes up to our expansion tank, which is over there. We pulled that off almost the very first thing. You also have your PCV system. On either side, you're gonna have two breathers, at least on the STi model. This one will go up to the AOS over there. Same with this one. So you have two single hoses on either side, and then one big breather that goes across the entire thing, that goes down to the block. And then you have another breather that goes here. This is where your AOS drains as well. This big thing that is total pain to get out, this is your secondary air injection. It's only on the 2006 and up chassis. The 2007 kind of sits back near the strut tower, and then everything past that, it sits right here with your secondary air pump, which is over there. It's kind of crazy when you go aftermarket on a lot of these parts. It really does simplify things down a little bit. I think I might do the competition conversion kit for the AOS, just to have less lines in the engine bay. And then when I go to upgrade the fuel lines and fuel rails, that is going to significantly make things less complicated in my mind. I don't know. It's just kind of the way I look at things and view them. But on a factory car, I don't know how they do it from the factory. I don't know if they pull everything out at once and do it on a stand. I'm sure there's some special technique to doing these motor pulls that just allows the factory to crank these out. But not me, because I don't know what I'm doing. So we got the downpipe out. Now we just have a couple things left. We have to loosen the motor mounts on the bottom. And then we have to pull the starter, and as well as it's like a pin that goes through the clutch fork. And then after that, there's a couple of grounding straps on the bottom. We'll jack up the transmission, and then we will attempt to get this thing out. Oh, and the pitch mount too. Oh. Okay, yeah, there is a small tab on the back. Anyways, there's your starter. Or just put cardboard in there. Okay, stupid piece of shit. So, here we have it. Finally got it out. It took a lot of persuasion. As you guys saw, I was getting on it pretty hard with the hammer and the chisel. Unfortunately, this dowel pin is what was giving us problems. It's pretty rusted. I'm probably gonna have to remove it and get a new one. The other one is stuck in the block, but for whatever reason, I don't know why it was so rusted and corroded, but it was. And so it was holding up from pulling the transmission from the engine. Keep in mind, this is my very first time ever pulling a motor on a car, so I'm kind of learning as I'm going. And it's a lot of trial and error for me and a lot of YouTube University, but I think we did all right for our first time. I'm still waiting on a bunch of tools from Company 23 to get this motor torn down. There's some special tools you need for the AVCS cam gears and another tool to compress the springs. So those will be here sometime, hopefully soon. But I think tomorrow, not tonight, because I just don't have it in me tonight. But tomorrow, I'm going to go through and get this mounted on the stand and get the clutch off and start tearing off everything from the block and just stripping it down to the block. But it's gonna have to wait for tomorrow because I'm on like hour 8 of this thing and we just now got the motor out. There's part of me that kind of maybe doesn't hope for it, but is okay if the fact that this bottom end is gone, because then it's a chance to, you know, have a super sick motor. But there's also part of me that knows like that is gonna be insanely expensive. So I'm really hoping, I think I'm okay with either or. I think in the long run, I would prefer if this bottom end is still good and we could just rebuild the heads and maybe make them a little bit stronger and then throw it back in, because the Type RA short blocks supposedly are still pretty strong from the factory. They're not crazy. They're not going to take 1,000 horsepower, but they'll take enough horsepower for what I'm looking to push. So we'll see. I guess we won't know until I finally get it all stripped down. But what do you guys think? Should we take the opportunity while we have it out and build it out, or should we just fix it and make it a fun daily? Let me know down below. I do also want to let you guys know before I close this video out that I have opened kind of a merch shop. It's called Stuck Driven. I'll put a link down in the description below, but I'm starting to build my brand out for the channel so that I can have some pretty cool merch in the future, but also have a way to fund builds like these until YouTube decides to monetize me, and after that, because in the grand scheme of things, for a lot of creators, YouTube monetization and ad revenue is a small chunk of the total growth and revenue that they bring in. So I'll post a link down in the description below. Check it out. We just got a couple products right now, but if you'd like to support the channel and support me rebuilding this car, I would greatly appreciate it if you picked up a couple of products. With that, I think I'm gonna close out this video and we'll see you in the next one.